That's
I,
not entirely true. I've definitely
I
done a podcast that's been edited, but not my normal go-to.
for me, live is dangerous because I just go way off topic, and then I'm like, holy shit, like, oof. But if I get the intro right, it usually goes good. Sometimes the intro
Cool.
just is the biggest hurdle. Well, all right, welcome everybody to the channel. I've got Jack Zampolin here. If you've been in Cosmos for any amount of time, you know exactly who this is. Maybe you've never seen his face, but you know who it is. And he's been the product lead for the Cosmos Hub, Cosmos SDK, IBC. He's contributed up and down the tech stack for years, and he's behind Strangelove. They do a ton of work. Also, they do not only validating, but what else? Fill in what I missed.
So we do validating, we do core software development, we also do contract software development, and we sell RPC access, hosted relayers, white label validators.
I
We sell
remember
stuff.
I was doing something on Juno, and I saw on the bottom of the browser said something RPC Strangelove, and I was like, oh, that's Jack. So
Yeah.
you helped me gamble on Juno, so thank you for that.
Fortis? Was that Fortis or
No,
Dow
it
Dow?
was recently. I think I was messing with I was messing with Gelato,
Oh, fun.
or Raccoon. But yeah, I'm like, oh, Strangelove, I know them. So usually what I do is start off with some yes or no questions, really quick ones. Then we'll get into just kind of the state of Cosmos, the future, where it's going. Some Juno questions, and then I definitely want to talk about Sommelier. A lot of people are not that familiar with it, and they should be, in my
Yeah.
opinion. And I have community questions from people that are in my Telegram group. They supplied me with these when I first told them a couple months ago that I was going to try to get an interview with you. And yeah, we'll jump from Cosmos to Juno to Sommelier, and hopefully we don't miss anything big. But I'll start with the yes or no questions. First question, just because it's relevant now, as far as Cosmos goes, in your opinion, is the new grants program bullish for the Atom token specifically on a long-term horizon?
Yes.
Cool. A lot of people, if you said no, would probably X out the video because it's been controversial. But look, it's yes, and we'll talk about that,
Yeah.
even more. All right, Sommelier, can cosmonauts get exposure to these trading strategies without going to Ethereum if they don't want to?
Not right now.
Not right now. Okay, but it sounds like that'll be a possibility, which is good. Um, Someone from my community let me know that you're very involved or were involved in name services. Do you think the
Yeah.
current name services are redundant, or you just think this is the natural course of things when things are new?
I think it's kind of the natural course of things.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that there's a lot of work to be done on name services. But yeah,
Okay. Fair enough. And then the SOM token. This is my question. Was the SOM token, the airdrop, the most hassle-free airdrop in Cosmos history?
I hope so.
I think it was. No, it just appeared on Osmosis. Like that's where it was going to go anyway at some point. So to play
I wrote
around
a
with
bunch
the
of that
token.
code.
Good. All right. Cool. So let's start with Cosmos, the grants program.
To be fair, Bitsong did it this way before we did. Just FYI.
But I think I had to go to different places to claim Bitsong. No, did I have to make the wallet
Bitsong
first?
just sent it to Osmo people.
Got it.
On
Okay.
Osmo, they just like, yeah, you got it.
All right. Well, then those are tied for first, and they definitely beat out like or AI. That was a rough one that I gave up on that one. And there were a couple others that it was like, damn, I hope this airdrop ends up being something once I finally claim it. So all right, let's start with Cosmos, if that's okay with you, and the grants program without getting too much into governance. Um, is this the best way you think to compensate for Atom 2.0 getting voted down? Is this not really a replacement for that? Can you put that
It's
in?
not really a replacement for that.
Okay, cool.
No, but it's a necessary step that the Atom holders need to take governance into their own hands. Because right now, what we have is this high level, top level governance, which is cool. And it's a lot more than any other chain has. And I think it's been one of the core innovations of Cosmos. And if you look at on chain activity, it's a killer app. We have tens of thousands, if not around 100,000 folks who are actively engaged in these types of on-chain governance behaviors, which are really fun. Yeah, they're terrible and they're hard, but a lot of people really enjoy it. And there's nothing wrong with that. People like having a say in the systems that they're a part of, and this gives them that in a real way. But if we want to move beyond basically like small d democratic governance, which you can't even really call this because it's token holder voting, even within a corporation where it's sort of shareholder voting, which is very analogous to token holder voting, they create a board, and the board makes a lot of the core decisions on behalf of the shareholders. And it's only very rarely where you have to go to that top level governance to have a proxy fight. And this is sort of like how things get done in corporations, and things that look like this is they create a board that they take some of this top level governance authority, invest that in the board. This is exactly what we've done with the grants program. We've said some of this money that we manage as a community for the Cosmos Hub, we want to give it to this group of folks, and they're going to do a better job distributing it than we could on our own. And that is a critical step for the hub to take to mature as a governance entity.
Got it. Okay. I was a yes on Atom 2.0. I like the idea of a treasury of some sort.
Yeah,
this is different than Atom 2.0 because the way that it's funded is community tax versus the adjustments to inflation, right? That's probably the biggest difference. There's no adjustment to the tokenomics right now.
We did adjust community spend take.
Can you explain that?
So there was a proposal, I want to say it was somewhere in the early 90s, I don't know, that increased the community tax from 2% to, I believe, 10%.
Right. But that's different than adjusting the inflation. Was that the original plan with Atom 2.0, where it was going to go directly into this treasury without even...
Yeah.
It was a little bit different because of the tokenomics, but I didn't like just the way the prop was written in general, because it looked like there was very little oversight. The people were self-appointed, and then it looks like they had a lot of leeway, right? Because some of these decisions that normally would be on chain are taken off chain. And I get it, for like a $20,000 spend, I don't think you need like $1 billion worth of Atom tokens voting on that. But
No.
do you think that they got it right as far as, hey, this is what we're going to call a small grant, and this is a medium grant? Yeah. You think that they're still within the right authority over those funds for that group of self-selected people?
I do. I think that there's a lot of examples of groups of that size managing hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars very effectively. So I don't see any issue with that.
Okay. And I did email Yusuf like a whole bunch of questions because I couldn't meet with him. But one of the things I thought was weird was I just asked him yes or no questions because we couldn't have a conversation. I was like, does this actually lean more towards decentralizing the hub or centralizing it? And he said, oh, definitely decentralizing, something like that. I'm like, well, given 7 people, a couple $1 million is not, even if they waste all the money tomorrow, it's not the end of the world considering how big Cosmos is. But I thought that was a weird response to that question. I think unless you have competing grants programs with roughly the same amount of responsibility, or maybe specializing in, giving out those grants for different purposes, I think initially this is centralizing with a chance to become more decentralized. And I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I think that thinking about decentralization and more decentralization as just an unalloyed good is one of the biggest sort of like mental mistakes that we in this space make. There are times at which decentralization is a huge benefit, and there are times at which there's huge downsides to it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
I like to think about it as our superpower and simultaneously the kryptonite that keeps us from reaching our potential. For distribution of funds, having a smaller group is like better than a larger group. If you have a larger group doing that, like it's like empirically better. So the hub itself and the validator set is very decentralized, but without change, without funding, without additional developers working on the platform, it will centralize over time. So in that way, giving this grants, like taking some of this top level governance power and giving it away to this grants committee, does decentralize the hub in a way, and it gives decision-making power to people who don't have it within the existing governance system. So in that way, it is taking this power that's centralized within governance and decentralizing it. So I think it's overall positive and a step in the right direction.
Okay. In your opinion, then, what does this program have to do well how do they have to formulate their decisions in order to ensure that value for that grants program is returned back to Atom stakers?
Yeah, they need to bring in new developers and entrepreneurs into the Cosmos Hub that will build on the hub. And as long as they do that, and fund programs that are focused on the hub itself growing and capturing value, then that's going to be a massive change, because right now there's not a single organization that has that as their mandate, while the grants program does.
And you mentioned something about capturing value. The Atom token has a little bit of a problem with that. I think the Atom token benefits from this great narrative that Cosmos has, right? People will see the Atom token and say, oh, that's how I get into this gigantic ecosystem. Yeah. And I mean, it's interoperability, but also security compared to, like, let's say Ethereum bridges or Binance bridges that have been exploited dozens of times. As far as the Atom token itself, is there something that you could envision where you think, yes, if this, and this happens over the next year or two, value will start to return or be captured by the Atom token versus depending strictly on a narrative to, move in the next bull market, like some of the others, like Polkadot or Avalanche, whatever their mechanism is? I'm sure it's different.
Yeah, I think that, well, a lot of those other networks have value capture baked deeply into the way that they've built it. What we've chosen to do in Cosmos is what I like to call kind of like a scorched earth open source policy. And the reason I describe it on this is, like, in a scorched earth policy, you're like burning the crops so that the army that's attacking you can't eat. And it weakens the army that's attacking you. So who is the army that's attacking us here? It's Polkadot, it's Avalanche, it's Ethereum, it's our competitors.
Yeah.
And what do they have that we don't? They've got a lot of money, and they're all centralized. They all have top-down control, and they have these coherent plans. What do we have? We have decentralization, and we have a better technical architecture that enables that.
No, I agree. I mean, I've looked around, and obviously Cardano's trying to get in on this interoperability narrative as well.
Everyone is. It's hot.
Polygon, right? They have that, like, either figurehead or figure company that just puts out all this information that is official. And it reminds me of, traditional finance Web 2, which is familiar to people who are investors on the sideline, right? And I think, does it matter that Cosmos has the best tech going forward, or do they need to really figure out a way for Atom to capture the value so that they could fund even bigger grants programs, much bigger, spends?
Yeah, I think that, there's a number of ways that could happen. But to get back to, like, how Atom can capture value in this scorched earth open source strategy, a lot of these other ecosystems are trying to capture value at the bridge layer. They're trying to capture value at the layer where you deploy your application. What we've done is make it free to run the Cosmos SDK and free to use IBC. So our competitors, the main ways that they capture value and make money, we have created better alternatives that are free. So this erodes their markets and gives us more market share. Now, what we have to do is build value capture on top of those things that we've open sourced and on top of those things that we've made free. And that relies on getting scale from them. So at this point, Atom, if we're thinking of Atom as this token that's going to capture value from the Cosmos ecosystem, we still need to continue to scale the Cosmos ecosystem before we can like capture a lot of value out of it. Because the more value we capture out of it, the slower the growth happens. And what we want is a lot of growth so that we can crowd out our competition so that we can then capture value in the future. That's the strategy that we should be playing as atom holders.
Got it. And to be clear, you would like to see actual applications built on CosmosHub, I would imagine.
I'd like to see applications that focus on expanding IBC and providing value to other IBC chains. You know, there's a lot of people who disagree with me on this, and that's totally fine, but here's things that I think are important. The original CosmosHub white paper has always said that routing transactions is a key piece of atom value capture. So like, think of the way that Axelar does it right now. They're this hub, and they're routing value through Axelar to a number of other pieces in the ecosystem.
Yeah.
They take a little vig on that. They make money on that. This is what the hub could do with IBC. But we need to expand IBC a lot in terms of like the amount of money flowing through it and also the number of chains before we can realistically do that. Strangelove built a piece of software for the hub called the Packet Forward Middleware that didn't really get any support beyond me, which I have limited bandwidth to drive things. So that never happened, but I do think that ability for the hub to be a router and to take transaction fees from assets and packets of data moving via IBC throughout the ecosystem, that exists. So that's one potential thing. Interchain services. You will see the CosmosHub Twitter account talking a lot about interchain services. So these are the applications that I think we should build. And that interchain services narrative is one that I've been championing for a really long time. So excited to see Thyborg finally tweeting about it. Then there's stuff like the chain naming service. In the internet, there's a bunch of computers that are attached to the internet. You can't go anywhere to really figure out where the other computers on the internet are without sort of knowing it. So what the domain name service does is have some human readable identifier, say google.com, that points you to where the computers are that are running google.com. And in that same way, in IBC, if you're on Osmosis, how do you know where the rest of the IBC chains are? You can't really know that. So what we need is some sort of chain naming service that provides data about the chains, how to connect via IBC, what kind of applications exist on those. And the natural place for that would be on the CosmosHub. You asked a question about name services earlier. This is a name service that names chains. It doesn't name wallets. It doesn't say like joe.osmo. But with this top level chain naming service, you could have many, many different wallet naming services that exist that help use that the chain naming service can use to coordinate amongst them. And then it removes this sort of competitive aspect to these name services and can remove some of the drama there. I think that like that's kind of a big missing piece. The obvious interchain service that I'm sort of skipping over right now is interchain security. This is where we rent the security of the CosmosHub validator set to other applications, and those applications then run on the CosmosHub validator set. That will be very interesting to see how that plays out. There's some exciting applications launching there. But I think that, none of this happens without us winning the scaling war and like bringing more economic activity and developer activity into Cosmos.
Got it. Okay. Well, you mentioned ICS. A lot of people have been looking forward to that. In as general terms as you can, for the typical staker of Atom, what does a good network or a good ecosystem around the hub look like with ICS for someone who just wants to passively stake Atom? What do those chains actually, how does that value get returned to the hub?
Yeah, if those chains have economic activity on them, that value, you want to see them sharing that value with the staked Atom distribution.
And that would be their own token going to Atom stakers? How would that look?
Could be their own token. Could be just fees that they generate on top of it based in Atom or in USDC or in some other token. But we as an Atom, uh, like we as the staked Atom distribution, want to see these chains that the validators are spending money and resources running. We want to see them creating economic activity that the rewards of which would then go back to Atom stakers.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Because I think one of the things that I'm thinking is, if these these consumer chains are not actual, like, competitive novel chains, it's going to be just people dumping that token almost like it's an airdrop that they don't want, right? Thinking, oh, I'll just stake my Atom and I'll just be able to continuously sell these other tokens into Atom. That's only going to work for a really short amount of time, right? Because then
Yes, that's a
you're putting,
circular economy.
yeah, you put
That's
really
not.
bad, you almost don't even give the consumer chain a chance if that's
Yes.
the mentality. And I think for some that is the mentality. I think the consumer chains have to be really good because they're also competing with the rest of the ecosystem, whether they
Yep.
like it or not. Like
Yeah,
there's
they
not going
do.
to be a DEX that comes out and then in one day they're as good as Osmosis. Like that's not going to happen.
Nope.
So what consumer chain projects are you that you know about that people should be looking forward to that you could share here?
Yeah, I mean, Strangelove is building Noble, which is the USDC consumer chain. We've just
Got it.
announced recently that we're not going to launch with the initial version of ICS, but I think the intention is to be a hub secured chain at some point in the future. There's Neutron, which is from the P2P team and the Lido team. They're fantastic. I think that what they're doing is excellent, and that's a very, very high quality group of developers. Duality is another one that we work with. We work pretty closely with the Duality team. We're investors through Galileo, and Strangelove works with their engineering team to help them ship a variety of features. That's a DEX. So yeah, I think that there's a few other ones too that I'm probably not thinking of.
All right, no, I think that'll be good because people, like I said, I think people have been looking forward to ICS. I don't know if it's like make or break for the hub itself, but it seems like that. Um, Maybe we mentioned earlier about some of the chains that we should look at as competition, right? Um, how do you think Cosmos or the ecosystem in general measures up to something like Polkadot or Avalanche? I'm not that familiar with Avalanche. Um, Even Ethereum. Where do you think Cosmos is at as far as the tech, since you would know it a
Yeah,
lot better than most?
I've always thought of our main competition as Ethereum, and
Okay.
I'm kind of alone in that. Not alone,
Probably.
but I think a lot of people don't want to look at that as real competition because they see how big it is, they see how successful it is, and it's scary.
I
Um,
definitely understand that. Yeah. Okay.
which I get too. But the fact is that if we want to build something special, we need to look at the best in class and think that we're better. And I frankly think that we are. From an architecture perspective, for a broad class of applications that require sovereignty, Cosmos offers something compelling that Ethereum can't and won't offer. And I think that the fact that we've been multi-chain native from the beginning and the fact that the entire industry is moving this direction gives us a unique advantage over Ethereum and our other competitors over the next year or two. We need to sort of like line up against that. Now, Cosmos is stronger on the technical architecture side. And I think, honestly, on the speed of development side as well, we've been able to sort of ship features and new chains much faster than a lot of other folks. Where we've lagged is on the boring pieces, frankly, custody integrations, working with venture capitalists and traders who are coming into the chains and doing business. We haven't done a great job of wooing those folks in Cosmos because we've been too focused on the core tech itself. The app builders, we've got a very vibrant ecosystem within CosmWasm. There's a lot of Cosmos SDK developers, but that pales in comparison to what, say, Solana has or Ethereum has in terms of people building dApps on top of those chains. So, like, how do we stack up? We have a completely different model. We're not a top-down development company. We're an open source project, and we're looking to provide a lot of the things that these other companies make money off of for free. And we're doing that as a group of 30 or 40 random companies spread all over the world without a lot of central coordination.
Yeah.
So I think that, we talked about decentralization as being like Superman's powers as well as kryptonite at the same time. And in many ways, that's sort of where we're at in Cosmos, and sort of like how we stack up competitively as well. We're more decentralized, which in an era where there's a lot of regulatory scrutiny coming to a lot of projects, with the SEC and Operation Choke Point, that's a huge benefit. But in terms of shipping coherent products that appeal to a broad spectrum of developers, and all of the versions are nice and ordered, and the documentation looks nice, and everything sort of works together well, we come up well short there in a lot of categories. But in terms of like the base tech, we still do have a strong advantage. And I think with Celestia shipping this year, Penumbra, which is a really exciting privacy chain, continued advancements in IBC, we put ourselves in a competitive position where I think we can win.
Got it. And last question about Cosmos, then I'd like to jump over to Juno.
Yeah.
How significant do you think the DYDX decision was to build their own
Huge.
chain? Yeah. Okay. I thought that was enormous. Like,
yeah, we're working closely with them.
Good.
On onboarding. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. No, that's good to hear, because it it happened at like a time where I think there wasn't a lot of interest in crypto in general, just because of the market, and haven't heard much. But that's good to hear. I thought that was enormous. I think that would be a tremendous.
It's going to happen this summer. Like, we're working with them quite closely. Migrating that amount of liquidity over onto this base is going to be really, really awesome.
All right. A lot of people that watch this channel are Juno people, so we'll jump over to there. I don't really follow Juno governance so much. I feel like Juno is still really raw, and now that DAO is in version 2, I think we'll see things ramp up. They're kind of stress testing it now with the fun corporation games they're playing over there. But something that is maybe significant, the Core 1 team becoming a sub DAO. Is this helpful for decentralization? I think a lot of people see it that way. Is this just a symbolic gesture? Are there implications of that happening that maybe a typical user doesn't understand? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Core 1.
Right, you're on Core 1. Right.
Like, I brought this up and said we need to do it, and like Jake's been great and made it happen. Yeah, I think that it's necessary that we move Core 1 into this DAO process, and like into this governance system that we're building as a part of Juno. A lot of people, I agree with you, Juno is raw. However, the hub itself is raw too. And if you look at how the governance has played out on the hub, it's in this place where people are fighting any kind of forward progress, essentially. And what we've managed to do in Juno is install this sort of like council idea, and this idea of a treasury deeply in the chain. And we've continually advanced the state of the art on tooling to build new governance structures as a chain. And what we've seen throughout the bear market is there's a huge group of people, developers and other folks, who are very, very interested and invested in the Juno project and want to see it continue, and are willing to spend a bunch of time and effort building that community and ensuring it's great. And as part of moving Core 1 into a DAO, we're bringing on 2 new members, which are the Frey from Needlecast Validator, who's been a longtime developer for Juno, and is just like been a great community member, and then Max, who's the community lead for Juno. And in Cosmos, with the existing multi-signature accounts, there's no way to rotate keys in and out. So we needed to do this to A, further decentralize Core 1, B, bring Core 1 in line with the rest of the DAOs that are managed by top-level Juno governance, and C, drive the project forward, frankly. I'm on Core 1. We've got Block Creator, who's an Anon, who literally no one knows who he is. Like, I don't either. We've got Imasi from SG1. We've got Jake, and we've got Demi. And like, we were critical to the beginning of the project, but as more and more people come into the project and people's interest level and commitment to the project changes, we need a way to rotate people in and out and ensure that that dev fund that is Core One continues to stay strong and has the best interests of Juno at heart. And that requires a little bit of decentralization and giving up power.
Got it. All right. Yeah. Cause I had Jake on a couple months ago and he goes, there will be, addition and removal of members and that needs to happen. He was hell bent on that. And I've heard him on spaces say the same
That
thing.
was probably after a conversation I had with Jake.
Well, I think I think people get, okay, this is good. You could vote on stuff, but I see DAO as really the bull case for Juno because the way Cosmos in general, like you said, it's like 30, 40 companies that are really not connected, all working to scale Cosmos. Juno with this tooling could be the first ones to build like almost multiple decentralized traditional looking companies on the chain that could be hyper focused on various aspects and really push DeFi forward. I see DeFi is really disorganized, even on Ethereum, right?
It is.
I think you need to operate almost like a corporation where specific responsibilities are given to specific people. Boom, you could progress really fast that way. You'll make mistakes probably, but who cares if you're just like burning ahead? I don't know if you see it the same way, but I see DAO
this is
as
why
the
I've
bull
long
case.
thought DAO is the critical application for Juno and one of the reasons why I am still long-term bullish on Juno.
And I don't want to downplay what Wind is doing, but organization is desperately needed.
Wind
I think
is built on DAO.
Right. They're really the application piece. They're like where the rubber meets the road. I think if DAO is really kind of utilized and even upgraded further over the next year, it will look a lot better to outside investors to see, okay, look, I actually see the organization of this chain. It's built on decentralized infrastructure, but it kind of looks more traditional for maybe my clients or my fund where I want to park.
Could you imagine LegalZoom, where they went and helped you create an LLC or a C Corp, and then they just gave you a DAO to manage all your funds?
I think that's absolutely necessary. And I think
maybe
some people who are extreme decentralization, libertarian type minded people, they're not realistic. I think you need to be able to have, like you said, something that looks like a traditional company or service. Now you could do it with DAO in a decentralized way. Who's going to invest in a token or whatever you consider and speculate on a token when you can't even go to the website and figure out who's behind the project or what they're doing? And I think Juno can do this with DAO. I think, like I said, I think DAO is the bull case for Juno. Not in months, got to be patient.
In
but
years.
1 to 2 years, you'll see. You could see Juno be the DeFi hub for Cosmos when a lot of people consider that to be osmosis right now.
Whereas the hub has failed utterly with governance, Juno has been successful. Through the chaos, they've figured it out. And they're kind of continuing to innovate, and they built a culture around that. And that's encoded within a software, and that's called DAO. I think that that's the most exciting thing on Juno.
All right. Well, I like that. I like the way you've put that. And I think a lot of people watching the Juno community, I feel like they need constant reassurance. Like, what's Juno doing? Because there is chaos. I'm okay with the chaos as long as there's a step in the right direction at the end of it. And like you said, people for the good of the chain as a whole and the ecosystem on the chain as a whole, there will be people moved in and out, and at different stages of development, you'll need people with different skill sets, I would imagine. Corporations do this. I worked for a company. We got bought by somebody else. Within the first year, they rotated 3 different CEOs into the position to get our company to a different benchmark. And I said, I never thought this is what happened, but that's what it does. The CEO just steps aside or gets voted out and moved to a different position because there are different needs as the companies progress. So I see this happening with DAO, and it could be done in a transparent way, a decentralized way, even though it might resemble a corporation a little bit.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think that the only way that we like make this whole DAO thing work and is to be 10x better than existing solutions. And that's like companies. Like companies are the human organization solution that we're fundamentally competing against, and we have to be better than them before we can like take over. And right now they're like categorically worse. I think DAO is about the only thing that we have that is like competitive in terms of like being transparent, like allowing a lot of the things that you can do in a company in terms of like member rotation, equity distributions, things like that. And, through user testing and experimentation, which is really the only way good software gets developed, just FYI.
Yeah.
They're slowly iterating to a place where they're a lot better. They're going to be a lot better than companies. And yeah, this is why Juno has huge active user numbers, is because they've got a swarm of bees of different developers who are laser focused on providing value to users.
And every single person that I've talked to that's building something on Juno, whether it's Raccoon Supply, Gelato, Hopers, whoever, they swear by the Juno tech stack as well, which maybe a typical user like me is never going to fully understand. But all of those people that I talk to, they're doing different things, but they swear by what tools exist on Juno for them to build.
The original idea I had for Juno was, I remember talking to a Massey and Block in a room called the Cosmos Price Speculation Channel, which is no longer. And they were like, "Hey man, I want to build an app, man. Like, is the next big thing the DEX?" And I was like, no one's launched a CosmosHub chain. This is a VM, and you could build this crazy community around it, launch all these shit coins, and it's the best tech in the world, and it's free, and you could go do it. And they looped in Jake and Demi and the Fray and all those other folks, and kind of went and did it. And it was a bunch of open source software that they made a bunch of very minimal changes to, and that's the sort of core of Juno. Juno is like deeply Cosmos because it's comes from the core open source software, and this is why it's chaotic. Like, there was a lot of free stuff out there, and got to give credit to a Massey at Wolf Contract, if you don't know what I'm talking about. Where credit's due, he brought that whole thing together. The tokenomics was his construction, and went out and got that out in the world, and like they did a great job with it.
All right, before we move off Juno, maybe you're the best person to do this. Can you just explain to a typical user why CosmosHub is so significant, where they're actually interacting with it when they use a chain like Juno, and maybe how it's kind of I don't want to say like the next level of Cosmos, but maybe you could explain it in terms that a regular person can appreciate.
I mean, I feel differently about this than a lot of folks on Juno. I do not believe that CosmosHub is the end all be all. I think it's one tool in our tool belt. But there's a lot of people who love Rust, and there's a lot of missionary developers who love Rust. So let me give you the bull case on CosmosHub. Right now on Cosmos chains, because we envision this as an app chain thing. When you want to make changes to the way that the app that's built on the chain works, you have to restart it, basically, and like turn it off and turn it back on. Think about how when you used to install software on your old computers. Joe, you're older. You're like me. You used an old floppy disk computer at some point,
like 7 or 8 restart. It would take all day to load a game onto your computer.
Exactly. Yep. And like that's kind of where the Cosmos SDK is. You need to restart it. And with CosmosHub, you can do that without restarting your computer. And like that's really like the fundamental difference between writing a Cosmos module and a CosmosHub module. And like that's a huge point of friction for a lot of developers. A, B, in Cosmos, if you want to have a Cosmos module, you need to make that go through top level governance, and there's this whole coordination process to get all the validators to run it. Juno runs this permissionless CosmosHub thing where anyone can submit code to it. So it's just like Ethereum in that way. And there is a massive amount of demand for that in Cosmos that before Juno came out had no outlet. No one knew how to do this permissionless smart contracting thing in Cosmos. All of the pieces were there, but nobody had deployed it. Ethan Frey from Confio didn't want to build a permissionless CosmWasm chain. He didn't want to do it. He was focused on building a permission chain called T-Grade for European financial institutions using a proof of engagement model. Pretty far out there shit. But the core tech behind CosmWasm could be used to build this other thing. And that's what Juno did. They unleashed this use case and tapped into a lot of pin-up demand for this thing. Be able to deploy and develop apps that reach this Cosmos audience. And that's what CosmWasm has done. And it's enabled a different development framework that's really popular with a lot of people. And I think there was a lot of tech speak in there. Did I get to your core question?
Well, just to be clear, the demand you're talking about is from developers.
Yes.
Someone like me might not know exactly what's going on. We just say, oh, there's just better apps over here over time. Because
why are there better apps? Because there's more developers.
Right,
why are there more developers? Because we figured out how to sell developers.
Cool. No, I mean that definitely helps. That definitely helps. I want to talk about.
Have you ever seen developers, Steve Ballmer?
No.
Oh God, I got to pull it up for you. Steve Ballmer was the head of Microsoft, and I think it was back in God, when was that? I want to say this is like 2003 or something, and he's at this Microsoft conference, and there's this video of him, and he's sweating, and he's screaming, and his shirt is all wet, and he's just saying, developers, 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 and the crowd is going apeshit. And this is fundamentally how you build this platform scale tech. You need to convince a bunch of people to use it. And it's this developer marketing that I think Cosmos has done better than anyone else, is we've figured out what developers want and we give it to them. And that's what Juno does. That's why Juno has better apps, is because they've figured out better than anyone else in Cosmos what developers want. They're giving that to the developers.
Perfect. No, I mean that's basically the message that I got from, like I said, whether it be Hopers, Raccoon.bet, all the different, they're like, no, we want Juno. Like you said, there's some chaos there. Despite the chaos, that's where they want to where they want to be no matter what. So it definitely helps. And then from the user's perspective, like you said, over time, we'll just have better apps to play with, which is great. So I want to go to Sommelier, because I think Sommelier is underrated.
That's what IBC is about too, by the way. Making the developer experience of working on an application that spans multiple different blockchains easy and tractable. Because right now it's fucking impossible. You can't do it. There's White Whale and Quasar and a couple of other things that are kind of coming to market. But even over in Ethereum land, they just move tokens back and forth over these bridges. They're not moving data. They're not building complex applications that span many different chains. They take the same application that's on Ethereum and they deploy it on Polygon. They deploy it on BSC. And they're not linked in any way besides via value transfer between the different things. And that's a really stupid, frankly, way to do interoperability, just by moving tokens back and forth. There's much deeper interoperability you can build. And this is what IBC enables. And it's the fundamental competitive advantage that Cosmos has over other ecosystems.
I think most people, when you mention a bridge, they just think of token transfers.
Yep.
I mean, that's about it. And now already in Cosmos, they're talking about NFT transfers, which is a lot different, right? So, and I'm sure there's a lot more that you can do. And like I said, the end user might not realize exactly what's going on most of the time, but they'll just realize they're using better stuff over time, right? Or more convenient stuff over time.
It lets them do what they're doing easier. They don't have to restart their computer 7 times to play a game.
I remember loading in. Okay, now load disk 2. Now load disk 3. It would
Oh
take
yeah.
all day to load a game.
God.
Most people that I talk to in this space wouldn't recognize a floppy disk.
No,
So,
no. Joe,
all
we're
right.
getting old.
I listen.
Brutal.
I remember my computer had like two things I could do on it. One of them was an encyclopedia that never updated, and the other thing was
Britannica.
I think I had before I had Encarta. Encarta.
Encarta. Oh yeah. Oh, that was even. Yeah, that's right.
It
God.
had like 5 things per letter of the encyclopedia, and if your school
Yeah.
project was not on one of those things, you had to go to the library anyway. So
Yep.
it, I remember because I that's how I remember just loading that crap on the computer.
God.
Well, listen, it's for me, this is amazing how far stuff has come. And, like we just talked about building corporations on the blockchain, basically, right? You couldn't build anything anywhere. Everything was on a disk. Everything was on a
Yep.
disk. So
They used to mail them to you.
I remember
America
that.
Online would mail you discs.
Listen, my friends used to order each other AOL discs with instead of the right name, something like derogatory to our mothers. So when our moms would get the mail and be like, "What is this?" I and I'm not going to say the stuff we were sending because they let you put like 60. It was almost a tweet, like the name field. You could put like a 60 character name, and that's what we used to do. Sometimes you would get like 10 AOL discs in a week and then get grounded by Friday. So
God, that's hilarious.
I still remember that. All right. Let's
Thank
wrap
you
up
for
with
that. Thank you for that digression. I appreciate
oh,
it. Makes me feel not too old. That's good.
no, my friends were creative and horrific to each other at the same time. It was we could have actually built something, but we chose to do this instead with our creativity and
I do hood rat shit with my friends. So that's what we
25
do
years
in that
later, I
place
can still
anyway.
remember getting some of them, and like my mom would be like, what does this mean?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. You're gonna have to call his mom and then find out because I don't know. I wasn't there that day when they thought of this." So,
God. All right, wrapping up. What are the final questions here?
Sommelier. I think more people need
Yeah,
to know about it.
we
Can you
do.
just walk us through the products offered by Sommelier? Because when I
Yep.
did my video, they were only I think a couple, and since then you've launched some other stuff. But in a simple way, is it fair to say these are just exposure to trading strategies, um, professional
Yep.
trading strategies passively? Is that a
Yep.
good way to explain it? Okay. Let
Yeah, that's a good way to explain it. So in the Ethereum land or elsewhere in crypto, they call these vaults. Um,
right.
the problem that we're trying to solve with Sommelier is like decentralizing ownership of those vaults and those trading strategies, and still allowing users to take part in them. So on Ethereum and in a lot of the other real yield USD is the one that everyone's really excited about right now and why some seen a lot of traction. This is our first one to get a substantial amount of TVL, but those vaults are controlled by multi-sigs and often individual users or individual strategy providers. And there's a lot of custody risk there, frankly. So the difference with what Sommelier offers is that the Sommelier chain itself actually owns the smart contracts over on Ethereum. So it's a validator set that controls the vaults rather than a multi-sig.
Okay, that's a good way to explain it because it is
Yeah.
confusing for the first time, and I know some people are going to be geo blocked for certain DeFi apps, and I think I went to Ethereum and I bought the strategy tokens, but there's another
Yep.
entry into this as well.
Yeah, you can go to app.sum.finance if you're not in the US and use it. But I am a US person. I live in California. I'm a dyed in the wool American. I'm gonna fucking die here. And our government does not like DeFi.
No, they don't.
and in order to build and offer this product, we've had to geo block US users, and like that sucks. I don't love that. So just first off, sorry guys. But yeah, you can actually go on Uniswap, and because these strategy tokens are ERC20s, you can just go buy them on Uniswap. So yeah, like
Right.
please feel free to go ahead and do that.
Yep. So if I click here, I think it redirects me to Uniswap at a certain point just because I'm in the US, right?
Yeah,
Um,
I think it will.
hard to get this on the screen. But yeah, here we go.
Strangelove builds this front end. So I'm a co-founder of Sommelier, and I helped build the Gravity Bridge and helped build out the architecture and built out a lot of the backend team. And when I started working on Strangelove more, we took over building of the front end and all of the web user experience. So my team builds this dashboard here.
All right. And for this particular vault, real yield USD.
Yeah.
What does this mean? What does this mean? This is, I could get exposure to this. It's a stable coin vault.
Yeah. So it's meant to be a very sort of like conservative trading strategy. Hold stable coins and lend them out for very low yields, and just find the best places to do that throughout the Ethereum DeFi ecosystem. So I think we use Aave, Compound, and Uniswap.
Yep.
Aave and Compound are two different ways to lend out stable coins. And on Uniswap, we can put those stable coins into stablecoin pair LP positions so that there's no LP. And all we do is earn trading fees. And what the strategy does is just intelligently switch between the best way to allocate in those three strategies, and offers a blended return. You can see that up there. And then that rewards API also includes the liquidity farming we do. So we give holders of these of this strategy SOM tokens for doing it.
Okay, so if I connect here, I think it's going to send me, or it's not going to let me connect. Wallet connect. I would just scan this with my Kepler, but it's gonna figure out I'm in the US. It's gonna send me to Uniswap for the strategy tokens, which is just like a backdoor to get exposure to the same strategies.
Exactly. You can either go like the front door is like depositing stable coins directly into that, and that's an Ethereum transaction where you take your stable coins and they go into the vault, and then the vault takes those stable coins and then moves them over to Aave or Compound or Uniswap. And what you get in return is an ERC20 token. It's actually, I think, technically like an ERC4256 or something. That's a vault standard, but it's an ERC20 basically, so that you can trade it on Uniswap. And your ownership over that vault is represented by the token. So what people have done is they've gone and like put money into these vaults, and then they'll go take those ERC20s and then go sell them over on Uniswap. And that's where they're available.
Understood. Okay, so that's what I must have bought, right? It's Uniswap V2, but the trading strategies deals with Uniswap V3, I'm guessing. Yeah, Uniswap V3. So,
yeah.
And where does the SOM token fit into all this?
Yeah, so how do you make money managing money? You charge fees on top of the management. And in Sommelier, who owns this investment company? It's the SOM token holders and the SOM validators. They're the ones custodying the assets over on Ethereum. They're taking the risk, so they get the rewards. So if you scroll down a little bit, it will show you the breakdown of the reward distribution, and it's like 90% to, I don't know if it shows it to you on mobile, performance split, 100% to depositors. So this one is 100% to depositors. I don't think some of the other sellers have a different performance split, but
I see it right here. Okay.
Yeah, I think that we take like 5% of the upside on some of the other sellers, so that those management fees go to the SOM token holders.
Got it. Okay. No, that's pretty cool, because some people have asked me, "Hey, ask about
SOM staking rewards."
Just the connection here, because why am I going to Ethereum? Does the SOM token benefit from this? Are these two separate things? So I think this was good. And I would say this is just another option for idle tokens if you're not staking, not LPing. And I had some Ethereum sitting in a MetaMask wallet, and I made the video. I'll link it below if people want to see how I did it. I'm in the US also, and I just bought the strategy tokens on Uniswap version 2. There was like a momentum. It wasn't stable coins. It was Bitcoin, Ethereum trading strategy.
Yeah, we've got, I think, 4 of those too, and they're still live. You can go check those out on app.som.finance today.
Got it. Okay. And then when I trade back those tokens, if the strategy is done well in the market, I'm going to get back a different amount of ETH when I
Exactly.
yeah. So it's just something else besides LPing that you can do without having to be a trader yourself. I think it's cool. I think it's surprised I don't see more of it, to be honest with you, around DeFi. So this was cool that I was able to.
Yeah.
I listened to one of the spaces involving Sommelier, and then I'm like, oh, let me jump over there. I'm like, oh, look, the UI is really easy. I can make a video in like 10 minutes, and that's what I did.
Yeah.
So I'll link that
I
down
mean,
below.
Joe, you're a New Yorker. This money management business is massive. It's a huge, huge money maker. And because of the people who've adopted crypto so far, a lot of people want to do it on their own. This
Yes.
industry, where there's professionals building strategies and selling them to people who buy them, is huge. It's massive globally, and it's going to be huge in crypto too. And you're in finance is like a good example of this over on Ethereum. That's probably the largest strategy provider. They've fallen way off. And a lot of this activity is still sort of kind of nascent, but I personally believe in this product because of the huge analog within the traditional markets. There's money to be made trading crypto. It's a full-time job. It's really hard and it's extremely risky. And the best way to do that is to try a bunch of different trading strategies. And how would
Yeah.
you do that? Through a product like this. And so, this real yield USD seller is the first one that we've seen that's gotten significant traction. That's fantastic. It's taken a long time to sort of like build this pipeline of new financial products to offer, ensure a regulatory place, have all of the dev tooling. It's really hard to manage Ethereum contracts from a Cosmos chain. We had to build a shitload of custom software to do that. That's not to mention how hard it is to build automated trading strategies that actually make money. That's a whole other problem.
Right.
So we had to tackle a bunch of like extremely hard engineering problems. And what we've done is we built the wheel that does this. And like real yield USD is the first one that started to get traction, but I think there's a lot more coming down the pipe, which is
Cool.
exciting.
No, I think this doesn't get enough attention, especially within Cosmos
I agree.
when there's just so much stuff that's just it's coming, but this is built. And like you said, trading is a full-time job. You could get demolished learning how to trade, even with small amounts of money. I'm
Yeah.
happy to, take a shot with a trading strategy from a professional and also put my Ethereum to use, which I'm not going to stake. So it's for me, it's a win-win, and we'll see. It's going to do better than I would do trading. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's go check it out. It is
Actually, I just remembered I wrote a Medium article explaining it also. If you think the
You
video
did?
sucks, yes, I just
That was
remember.
the first time I ran into you. It was around your Som content. I was like, "Who's this Joe guy?"
Yeah. I remember. Like for people that think the video stinks, at least the Medium article, I ran it by someone in your marketing department. Hey, let me make sure I got all this. They said, oh yeah, all good, just publish it. And yeah, I got good feedback on that as well. So I'll link that below if you want to get acquainted with Sommelier.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Joe, this is a blast, and thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
This was great. We ran through everything on my agenda here. Hopefully, we could do a follow-up spaces maybe in a couple weeks or as
Yeah.
things ramp up again. Anytime, just let me know. This was fun, and
Awesome.
for people that don't know, I got to meet you in person a couple weeks ago for the
Yeah.
first time, so that was cool.
That was fantastic. It was the first trip I've taken since Lisbon.
Oh yeah, jeez.
Yeah.
Well,
So I'm gonna get out to Denver for a couple of days for Eat Denver, which will be fun. But
I'll have to get you at the next one, or next time you're in New York.
Yeah.
We'll have.
I'll be in New York soon. That was really fun.
All right,
Joe.
cool, man. Thanks for all this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you too. Thanks a lot.